I just did a karting race on an wet track. And here's how they made the track wet. You see, in the United Arab Emirates, it's hot all year long, and it barely rains. So to make the track wet, they had to bring massive trucks and tractors filled with water and poured it all over the track to make it wet and slippery. And after that was done, we had to get on track as fast as possible before the water started drying out. And this was my first time driving on a wet track. But before we start racing, 95.6% of you aren't even subscribed. So be sure to hit that subscribe button because we're trying to get to 30,000 subscribers. On the formation lap, I went out, but I didn't expect the track to be this wet. And as soon as I went through this corner, I went through a very unpleasant puddle of water and I was completely drenched less than 1 minute into the session. But I didn't mind and I continued to race. Now, this wasn't really a race, it was more of a 1 hour practice called an Ironman session. But even then, everyone was still competing to get the better lap time. Now the most tricky part wasn't braking, it was getting back on the gas. Since we were on slick tires, there was barely any grip on the exit of each corner. So you had to be really careful when you got back onto the gas, and if you got on the power a bit too much, you would spin out unpredictably. So I had to be more careful on the exit of every single corner. And the most efficient way to be fast on slick tires in wet conditions is to drive a wet line. You see, the normal line we drive in dry conditions has a lot of rubber on it. So when the track gets wet, all of that rubber is released, and that rubber compound also has some oil in it. So it makes the track really slippery. So I had to try my best to stay off of it. And only a few laps in, I was improving a lot every single lap. And surprisingly, I wasn't spinning out as much as everyone else, and I only spun out about 2 or 3 times in the whole session. And you can see my lap times improving by the green light shining on my lap timer. But I was nothing compared to some of the drivers that were insanely fast in the wet. And I tried my best to follow them, but I just couldn't keep up with them. For example, this driver that overtook me created a massive gap in just half a lap. But anyways, I still continued to push and tried to avoid the people that were spinning out. But the last 2 corners were really tricky. Some parts on the track, like the one I went through at the start of the session that got me completely drenched, held a lot of water. And one of those spots happened to be the final 2 corners, which had 2 massive puddles of water. So on the exit of the final corner, you had to go as wide as possible. And if you went any narrow, you would either spin out or have no traction. After a couple laps, I got the hang of it and got really good at getting a better exit on the last 2 corners. But the most fun I had in the whole session was going through the first corner, which is a fast uphill corner that quickly goes downhill, and I was catching up to everyone just in this corner. but I had to be really cautious because any amount of bumping could either spin me out or the driver ahead. But after about 30 to 45 minutes, the track started to dry out really fast. So every lap that the track got drier and drier, I could drive on the normal line, which is the dry line, on some corners, but I had to drive more carefully on the corners where the water got collected, such as the last two corners. Another way to get a faster lap time in the wet is to hop every single curb. This makes you spend less time going out wide and going back in on every single corner and minimizes the distance you have to drive. Now this might be a bit uncomfortable or it might hurt you a bit to hop every single curb, but it definitely makes you go faster. And as the track got drier and drier, so did my lap times. And since this session didn't have any track limits, I tried to abuse them as much as possible. And I also remembered that I could take a break and head into the pit lane, have some water, relax, but I was having way too much fun that I drove for 1 hour straight without any breaks. I'm not even sure how I did that, and I've never done that before, but I was definitely hurting the next day. And as we got closer to the end of the session, I could drive the track like it was completely dry, but I still wanted to practice the wet lines. Because I'll be doing another wet race on the same track in a couple weeks. But next time, instead of the track drying out, they're going to have a safety car and they're going to bring all of the trucks filled with water back onto the track to re-wet the track so we can have more fun in the wet. And if you've made it this far, comment down below wet line. Be sure to hit that subscribe button and I'll see you in the next one.